I think it's also important that we try to debunk the, therapy is like not good for you in a way. Like why is it so taboo for people to actually try and go to therapy? I think that's important for us to, as advocate of rehabilitation therapy, to try to address that. To kind of encourage people to put yourself out there and see what you can get out of it, because it is helpful, as we all can attest to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think part of this experience is to try to normalize therapy, right? I think sometimes I've had those experiences where clients come in and they just kind of look at us, and even though I'm not a doctor, I got that master's degree, I got that office over there, or, I got the paperwork, and everything seems so formal, and sometimes it doesn't have to be that way. We're real people too. We got lives. We definitely go home and vent, with each other. We definitely have those frustrations too, but, just trying to destigmatize, we're all out here trying to help our clients in our own individual ways, our own respective ways, and the other thing is that most people don't understand that not all therapy looks alike. Like we already kind of all mentioned here that we work in different areas, right? Whether it's the rehabilitation or prevention or an eating disorder clinic where, you're reteaching about nutrition and how to eat, and appropriate dieting and things like that. But we're all helping people in different ways, in different sites, and we're coming at it as different people, as different mental health professionals. And I think that it's important for people to understand that therapy is not this cookie cutter, like we're going to have a, Freud out here with, taking notes on a pad with somebody laying on the couch.
Going to a shrink.
Yeah, going to a shrink.
Going to a shrink.
Yeah, and I think some people also get have a perception of what therapists are, or what they look like, or how they are, their personalities and stuff like that. And I think you're going to find that, that us here, this group of people are very down to earth. We're very relatable and personable, and like, I think sometimes people get scared of going to therapy because they're like, oh, there's this like blank slate, or you really not going to get to know who this person is, or am I going to be talking to a robot? Am I going to be talking to someone that doesn't have any emotions or feelings? With me, my own therapy, like I have this philosophy is like, I always tell my clients this is like, we're having a human to human interaction and experience here. Like I'm not the expert of your own life. You are. And so I'm here to help just facilitate and help you to show, maybe guide you and direct you in some ways, but like you're the expert of your life, and we're having a human to human interaction. And I think that's what brings the healing also to people's lives and like repair, if you can have a human to human interaction, and that could be a positive experience, and it can be a corrective experience in that response, because they've been hurt by humans. They've been hurt by other people. And if you can give them that hope of like, to have a human experience, that you're not going to get hurt, or someone that's going to listen with you with non-judgment, with empathy, with understanding, and also be relatable to you. And I think that's, in my experience and what I've experienced in therapy and helping with clients, that's been so healing,
I think that relatable touch is definitely where I come from with the existential, and if you coming at it from art, I think there's all this like finding meaning and the searching for meaning type of thing and existential work. But as a therapist, the reason why I chose that and why it resonates so much with me is trying to reach people on that relatable level. Like I try to present myself as me. I'm not trying to go in there as a blank slate. I'm not trying to go in there with these preconceived notions or being in that quote unquote expert role, right? That's kind of what I was talking about earlier about that formality when you go in there with the little briefcase and the paperwork and all that. Like, nah, a lot of times I show up and I'm just me. I'm your therapist, but I'm also just John. John's showing up. I'm hanging out with John and we're talking for the next hour. And I think therapy at the end of the day is supposed to try and provide that corrective experience for having that one-on-one connection. We go back to Rogers in the person-centered therapy, which is for those of you out there who are new to the therapy and don't know who Rogers is, he was this guy from the humanistic perspective, and he kind of talked about not necessarily throwing away older perspectives, but just coming back to the basics of therapy. And one of his tenets was genuineness. And he was saying that, you know, if you're not being genuine as a therapist, if you're not providing that genuine, authentic experience, how can you expect that from your clients? You know, how are they going to reach that level if you're not genuine either?
Yeah, and that's genuineness, and also like unconditional regard, and also non-judgment, you know. And so you're coming from a place of, you know, you're not focusing on the problem, but you're focusing on the person, you know. And so, and be able to help them to gain a sense of mastery of independence, and also which is going to help them to motivate them to want to improve and want to get better, you know. And you're coming from a place of just, you know, I'm here for you. I'm going to listen to you. You're the expert of your life. And that's why I mentioned earlier, is like that client is the expert of their life. And I think when you come with an like it's old school therapy, when you're like, I'm the expert, you know, and so I'm going to come to you as an expert, that kind of shuts down communication, because that means that I have the answers and you don't, you know. And actually you have the answers. I want to help you find them. I want to help you. It's there already. You got it. Like, let me help you, direct you to find that answer that's already lying inside you. And that's why that resonates with me, that approach, person-centered, for sure.
Well, I always get the answer, oh, you're a therapist? Can I get your advice on something? You know, like, oh, can I let me tell you about something, especially when people are drunk, you know, when you're at the bar. I hate having to
You're
tell
at that
people I'm a
party.
therapist.
Yeah, they start like,
you know,
dude,
it feels like sobering when you tell people you're a therapist, you know, like they're just kind of like, oh, fuck, you know, like they just like look at themselves all of a sudden and they're just like, oh, damn.
Like, this is my opportunity. Let me get this off my chest,
Yeah,
right?
let me talk
this free session.
Yeah, let me talk about my childhood trauma with you right now in the midst of this bar right now. You're like, nah, dude.
We used to have a professor that used to be pretty blunt with people at a party. Her name was Carrie Watson, and how like she would always mention that whenever she got that, she was like, well, you can come see me in my office, but I'm not on the clock right now. But, you know, that's easier said than done when somebody is already at the party, already spilling their guts out.
It's like you're already just trying to be a homie for them, you know, and it's just like, hey, what do you do, by the way, you know? And it's like,
you're like, shit, man. I don't want to say I'm a therapist. Fuck. And when you say they're like, you know, I have depression, you're like, fuck, dude, nah, bro. I'm just trying to have a good time right here, man. Honestly.
like, nah, you know, like,
Well, I really don't care right now.
Man, I just give them a damn. That's crazy.
I don't really care about your problems.
That's
I'm sorry.
crazy.
Hey,
you
bro.
know, you should get someone. You should talk to somebody about that.
I just left work. I'm not trying to go back to work.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to hear your shit, dude.
But you bring up a good point, because we're talking about like how people approach therapy. We're talking about how we break down stigma. But Jorge, you actually work in prevention. So a lot of times you're the first therapist that people see, or you're the person that is the one kind of like starting to talk and assess with somebody before they kind of make that full-fledged commitment to, yeah, I need help.
Well, it was interesting to hear that, like, because I also align with, you know, the Rogerian style, and I definitely think it's more, you know, not to sound like tacky in our own field, because we know this shit, right? But it feels more like a spirit, right? The Rogerian spirit, because he didn't invent Rogerian therapy. He was doing it, and then people based it on his style. So I always approach it like that. But in prevention, you know, you are kind of like the expert. At least you're sort of like the door that's opening, or potentially even closing, you know, this door for somebody to have access to mental health. So there is sort of like this line that I think you kind of like mess around with, because you want to be accurate with the information you're giving people, especially if it's their first time, especially if they don't know what therapy is about. Yeah. And at the same time, you want to give them the opportunity to also like explore, right? Explore what they need. What objective are they here for? You know, what's the reason they're here for? Sometimes it's even just to get them to realize, you know, that there's something affecting them. But most of it is, you know, providing psychoeducation, being able to let the community know. You know, I think that's the best part about being in prevention, that they do look to you as sort of like the person that has the first answers, right? But you can essentially go, and if they need higher level of care, right? If they need somebody from IOP, you know, if they need somebody with grief or anything like that, you're able to help them out. But yeah, I think it's a little bit different, right? Because essentially you want your clients to sort of find these to guide them through that, right? But you have to be a little bit more directive. You know, you have to sort of like set some type of foundation for them to then sort of have that autonomy, right? To have the agency and want to change themselves. So I think that, yeah, that's the one thing about prevention. But I like it, you know, because you're sort of like the first step.
And now you're talking about like that autonomy of changing yourselves, right? And you're talking about that first step, that prevention. But what about solution focused, Maya? I mean, what about seeing somebody more on the IOP level of care, a little bit more intense, a little bit more community based, a little bit just already looking for those answers, man? I mean, you've been on that CBT grind, the solution focused grind. You did the trauma focused CBT world for a bit too. I mean, what's it out there like too to kind of come with some of those answers or those orientations?
Yeah, I mean, you coming at a time of people's lives where things just feel like they've been falling apart, and for me, it's been, you know, rewarding to see, like, you know, adding all this chaos, like, no, there's definitely a path in this, and being able to educate families on these were the number of cases where you guys could have twisted this in order for this to be totally different, but you missed this stop sign, you missed this stop sign, you plowed through this section, you decided not to turn in and turn to your child at this point.
You're avoiding all the signs on the road.
Avoiding all of it. And at this point, it's just like, all right, well,
reckless,
now we got to make amends. And in those points, it's whether it's a client that's suicidal and depressed, there are perfectly parts where you were going down, you reached out for help, you tried to make changes. The people that were supposed to, you know, catch you and help you turn things around didn't. They missed the mark. They were busy. Something happened in their life. They couldn't do it. Now it's a time where, hey, we're hit rock bottom. Everybody's tuned in. Now they just want to hear what you want, what you need. How do we get there? And I'm just there. I'm not the one that has all the answers because I don't know your life. I'm not the one that's going to solve everything because I only see you maybe an hour and a half a week. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'm allotted to. So with that time, how can we make this the best for you? How can we make this impactful? How are we going to make sure that our time together isn't just a waste of time? And if that's, hey, you know what, let's go to the basketball court, let's shoot around. Hey, let's talk about this boy that you like, but you don't like, but you kind of do like. Sure. Let's talk about SpongeBob for an hour, or Minecraft, or let me lie about knowing how to play Fortnite for an hour. Sure. If that's what you need to get you through the week, to, you know, not necessarily find your purpose, but like find your reason for living, by all means. While I also get to be that person of like, what if? What if we went to school a little bit more? You pulled up your grades. Do you think that would make your mood a little bit better? At the same time, I will call you on your shit. And like, you couldn't possibly believe that you were going to pass this test and you missed your class for a week. Come on, my guy. So being able to be irrational, being able to be emotional, being able to celebrate those wins with you, it's all that they need. Definitely within, whether it's solution focus, which it does heavily complimenting and praising for shit that you do deserve, no one's going to give you.
Yeah.
And CBT is just the blocks that you need to become your own therapist, and hopefully you can handle this stuff without me, because that's what I tell my people. Eventually I'm going to win the lottery. Someday I'm going to buy an island in Barbados. I'm going to live there, so you're going to have to live and have to do this shit without me at some point in time, because I'm not trying to make money off of you forever, right? Mm-hmm. Be nice, but then again, that's not for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think any of us here got into this profession for the money. That's for sure. We're out here in the helping.
I thought you've been
professions.
trying to be with a client for like 2-3 years.
Man, 6, 7. You know, just keep them on retainer.
Nah.
Nah.
Nah. I feel like with therapy, you know, there's a right time and the right place, and also different people are in different stages of change. You know, I think that I give a lot of this kudos to the existential approach and being this partner into this journey into the unknown, or this partner through their pain or whatever they need, right? And whether that's future planning or past trauma that they're still trying to filter out, or whatever it is, you know, I try to be that partner with them, that real person that is just going to show up and just be with them in their process wherever they're at, and yeah, sometimes I'm also calling out people on their stages of change. I'm definitely like, you know what? I don't think you are ready for this. You know, we signed a treatment plan, but I don't see you doing your action steps. I don't see you, you know, really putting a lot of self-reflection into this. You just kind of living life, and this really isn't going according to plan, but you're not willing to do anything to change it. So I'm kind of trying to be that real guy, you know, with them. And sometimes, like everybody else has said so far, you know, I try to be empathic. There's definitely those sessions where, you know, a CPS report got made, or like trauma just got disclosed for the first time ever, or anything like that. And it's just about me sitting there with them, sometimes in silence, sometimes just letting them speak and not saying much. Then there's other times when, yeah, like they're spouting out some bullshit, and you're just like, you know, you definitely can't believe that. Like, what do you mean? Like, you doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Like, come on now. Like, you know, you had to have seen that coming. Or with some that don't know limits, right? And that, like, it's like you haven't learned from this repeated consequence that keeps happening. You know, like how we have to learn how to self-reflect, you know, and like, I don't know how to get to the place that you want to get to unless we go together. But I need that equal partner too, that equal client that's also willing to make that journey. Which brings me up to you, Jeremy. I mean, we mentioned already how you're the only non-therapist here. You know, we're talking about meeting clients at different parts of their journey, right? But you know, I'm assuming a little bit that on your job, it's not as much about hearing them vent. You know, I know that you do hear their struggles, you do hear their difficulties, but it's a little bit different, right? They're coming at you because they want to get back in the workforce. You're already at that stage of their journey, that they're coming to you for those kind of answers and that kind of support.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not the actual therapist, but I would say I'm at that line where I do vet them out, and it's like you mentioned, I don't think you are ready for this step, right? And calling them out, and I do have those experiences too. It's you're telling your case manager that you're ready, but you're telling me something else that your case manager doesn't know, and so I have to report this to your case manager and inform him or her that this is what was reported. I don't think this is the best solution to it. You can always come back. You know, working with the state is like, it's not a one-time thing. You know, you can open a case. We can help you get employed, and then later down the line, whatever, if you seeking more employment or you want to go to school, we can help with training costs as well. And that's kind of like my approach is like, I just don't want to get you a job. I want to help you build a career, and if you can get that certification or that licensing, let's go ahead and tackle that, because we can pay for that, right? And in your current state right now, I know financially you might not be able to do it, so why not put your best foot forward, give it everything you got right now for 8, 9 months, 10 months. Let's find a program that's going to help you years down the line. And so, yeah, it's not more so like therapy in a way. It's trying to help them build those building blocks to, all right, if we go this route, this is it could look like. But if we go this route, this is what it could look like. And this is primarily being there, giving them that informed choice. I think that's one of the biggest things. Us is like, yeah, we're not the experts in what we're doing. We're just providing informed choice, meeting them where they are, and helping them with their, you know, as you mentioned, that human to human interaction. You're the expert of your life, and so that's kind of how I see my work. And yeah, it's like, it's really rewarding because you see someone who has their employment history is like scattered, like gaps in employment. And then you worry like, yo, if I work with you, are you just going to like up and leave the minute you get into a confrontation? Like, I need to know, because I don't want to put all this effort and you're just going to bail on me. Right. Because we make a successful case if they're 3 months 3 months at the job. And so it's not to say like we don't get rewarded or anything, but we do close your case, and we are, it's, to us, it's saying you can handle this on your own now, right? And that's it. But if you don't put your best foot forward, and you're going to those negative interactions, and your mental disabilities or something else, right? Schizoaffective is a big one that I deal with. You know, you're not making your job. I mean, you're making your other coworkers uncomfortable, at least. Right? Or don't know how to handle someone who might be acting out. But how is that helping them? And then how is that helping you? Are you taking any medication, or you're not? Like, we need to kind of roll back a bit. So it's not that grind of therapy that you guys are at, preventative, intensive, or disorders, but it's I think changing their mindset on how to adjust to what they're dealing with. You know, we don't want I don't want them to be labeled as disabled, right? It's just I think we have hidden disabilities that we struggle with, whether we're diagnosed or not. But you know, we find ways to work with that, in my opinion. And so, yeah, Voc Rehab it's intense. You know, we deal with homeless, you deal with people who got criminal records, you and then you know, intense disabilities, dual diagnosis and stuff. So wide range, 18 and above. You know, there's no limit to that. But yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just hearing you. I'm like thinking about what we deal with clients, and it's such a when we're dealing with humans and we're dealing with people, our clients and stuff. It's like they're so multifaceted. There's so many influences. There's so many factors that are going on of why they have these issues. You know, it can be familial, family. It can be their biological. It can be their environment. It can be systemic things and social things and going on in their life. And like thinking about like when you're talking about like, you know, they have records or, you know, they've been in prison or gone to jail or they're homeless. It's just systemic. And so you got to look at a person like the whole of a person. You know, you're just not looking at their problem. Oh, that's the problem. They're their problem. But there's so many influences and so many factors that come into play why they're struggling or having challenges, you know, and so we have to look at all that and take everything in consideration, you know, when we're dealing with the person.
I would add though, for me, it's like a big thing is drug use as well, drug abuse, dependency.
Yeah.
And so with rehabilitating back into the employment field, we can't make that decision for them, but it's like, all right, how can we make sure, how can we ensure that finding you a job is not going to help pay for your drug use, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're gonna dive into this, like we need your case manager, we need your other we need everyone in like hands in to make sure that all right, we're gonna build this case. Let's do the best we can to a village, right, to help this one person be successful in the case. And there's a lot of times that a lot of people they discharge from these homeless shelters or for whatever reason, they relapse or they don't come back for the night or they just leave, right? So, because there's a structure there as well. And so building that structure, right, rehabilitating the mind, this is something real. And for them, it's a life-changing, altering experience that most people will have a hard time dealing with.
And it's crazy because, like, you know, we talk about how this is, you know, the corrective experience, right, John? And you talk about sort of the being able to reintegrate, you know, being able to, sometimes we call it a planned or a successful discharge, right? Or like you just close the case in your field. And, you know, I'm being brought back to what you said, John, as far as how you, as a therapist, in your position, Jay, you know, you confront your client, right? You at a certain point, you identify that stage of change that they're stuck in, and yet they still don't change, you know, or yet it still takes a long time. You know, you can confront that on the, you know, once, but just how deep it is, right? How real it is. It really does take sometimes a village. It takes repetition, you know, it takes consistency and commitment, right? To do that. So it is also a field where you're going to see a lot of failures. You're going to see a lot of resistance. You're going to see a lot of clients that are there, but I guess the one thing that they're holding on to is hope. You know, they don't really know where to go. That's the only thing that they're holding on to right now. And it's just, you know, I always realize, you know, like how in the classroom when I was in grad school, you know, I felt so like, oh fuck yeah, you know, scholarly, academic, cerebral, and in the whole sense of like understanding change and understanding therapy. And you go into the real fucking life and you're just like, nah, dude. These case studies are just, you know, ways to give you examples. You're going to see people really challenge you as a therapist as well.
Thanks again everybody for tuning into Therapy House, the podcast that gives a reflective look from helping professionals experience. Here to remind you to check out our Linktree at Linktree/therapy_house. There you can find all the links for our podcast website, the different platforms that we are broadcasting on, individual links to our personal pages, some links to our professional pages, and of course, our email so that you guys can possibly request to come on the episode, like, comment, rate, and review our podcast so that we can grow. And of course, subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when we drop something new. Until then, we'll see you next time.